medic is boring. Something you've probably heard millions of times. Now, you might think, but he can't be that bad. All his miniguns heal people, and they all have their own specialties, like how the Crits Creek has damage, and the Stock does a lot of defense, and the Vaccinator. But there's one weapon that stands out, the Quick Fix. What does the Quick Fix do? Well, in my opinion, I think the Quick Fix is one of Medic's weirdest weapons. Okay, now that's cool and all, but what does the weapon actually do? So that's what we're going to be reviewing right now. We're going to talk about the stats at first, and then we'll talk about, obviously, the other things, what it can be used for, blast jumping, and all that stuff. But first, let's start off with the basic stats, starting from the top. The first one we have here is just an Uber change. The Uber change, though, is probably our most important part. Healing, Instead of going invulnerable or giving you crits or just being a straight damage resistance, this supercharge increases the healing to your guy by 300% and, grants immunity to move and impairing things. So that is going to be Air Blast, Natasha Slowdown, and a couple other things. But yeah, those are your two main ones. And 300% healing, so that's a double in healing. So that's like you're constantly getting critical heals. So the problem, which is a really good idea. So it's not an invulnerability, but it's like a really strong, like just constant healing, just boom, boom, boom. So it's really, but the problem with it is it really grants no buff to the medic, so you can't just pop it to be safe. And that's kind of its like main little quirk right there. Next set of stats are all more simple and not too hard to wrap your head around. We have the healing rate, 40% healing rate, so that basically means you heal faster and you spread heals faster, which are really great for pub settings and teams with bigger lobbies, because the higher heal rate does not prioritize pocketing, so it's really helpful for just spreading heals around because you can get them back up and running faster. And the 10% faster Uber rate build, it's kind of just a quality of life. It also helps with like the fact that how you're healing and stuff, but it also helps with a downside with this thing, I guess you could say, that because if you don't know, when you're healing someone that has been overhealed, you get less Uber, and since this one heals so fast, you could quickly reach overheal and get less Uber. So this little Uber buff basically makes that go no. It makes you gain at a normal people rate, while still getting that buff when, when you are not healing overhealed people, making it even better. The next stat is actually a downside. We're done with the blue stats, or the good stats. Well, technically we're done. There's another one that's a gray stat, but it should be blue. It's a pretty good upside. This one is minus 50% overheal, which is a pretty dealio. Because if you can see on screen, when I healed a soldier who has 200 health, he goes up to 212 health. That's not a huge difference. So yeah, that's pretty. So the overheal is not great, but there's not much, but it's not that big of a downside though. Because you heal, I think it's you heal so much faster. So it doesn't really make too much of a difference, because you'll basically just out-heal all the damage, which is kind of funny. Because, yes, you technically can absorb less damage because you have less overheal in a vacuum, but the TF2 isn't a vacuum. You'll be take this example. If overheal was permanent and you gave someone overheal and then left them, they would be worse than if you just glued yourself to them, which kind of enforces pocketing. So it's kind of contradicting. The downside encourages pocketing, but the upsides discourage pocketing, which makes it kind of confusing. So that's why it's just a weird weapon. That's why it's Medic's weirdest weapon. But we got one last stat to go over. Next is the final stat that we'll be going over right now. Is the mirrors, blast jump, and shield charges and all that stuff. Which basically means if your pocket blast jumps, or shield charges, which is usually a huge problem. You're like, okay, I'm at full Uber. There are 3 enemies up ahead. Let's go get them. And then they blast jump. And then you're like, wait, now I'm by myself. Freaking exploded. Turned into like a fine red mist. Like you're just cooked. Well, this one, now you will join them on your little flight. Which is a good thing. But it can also be kind of a bad thing. Because if you think about it, you won't exactly mimic it. You won't mimic their momentum. You'll mimic the charge, but if you're not running with them, like if you're standing still and they're moving and they do it, you'll just go straight up, which can be kind of a bad thing, especially if there's like a sniper nearby. But overall, it's pretty positive. And now we'll be going over some of the use cases for it. Let's talk about some of the use cases for it. So the first one on the list is pubs, or casual settings, where it's not very organized, and that way you can just get a lot of heals quickly, because that's where people are going to be taking a lot of damage, and it's going to be the most crazy, and that's what it's going to help the most. The next one is soldiers and demos, because they like to jump around with their rocket jumpers and sticky jumpers, and that can be hard to keep up with all the other miniguns, but this one with its little blast jumping helpy thingy stat makes it way easier and makes them 1,000 times better Uber recipients than they already were. And the final one is turning off your brain. You can just turn off your brain. You just kind of spin in a circle and click the funny M1 button. Because then you just heal everyone. Then all of a sudden, everyone's healed. Oh my god, it's so surprising. It's just super easy to use. You just kind of click the button. It's even easier than stock, I would say. I know, crazy, right? Now, a lot of times you'll see the quick fix kind of get banged on a little bit for being one of Medic's worst miniguns. But I go by one very true and very amazing statement said by that one guy that did the vaccinator video. There is no bad minigun, for they all heal the people that you like. And that is a good quote. That's not exactly what they said, but just think about that for a second. Every minigun will heal, meaning there is no bad minigun. And this one's the best healer. So it's a really good minigun. Now it does have a couple big weaknesses. One of the main ones is crits. Crits just destroy this thing. Because it doesn't matter how much healing you can do, if you instantly die, you can't out-heal instant death. Yeah. You can't out-heal instant death. Which is a big thing. You can't out-heal instant death. Because instant death is instant death. So crits, headshots, which are technically crits, what are some other things? Backstabs, which are also technically crits. None of that gets blocked by this thing. Which is kind of a quite a large dealio, because those are some big problems that Medics faces. And they can just shut down your Uber. Just plop, whop, whop. But one stat that I feel like I should focus on now is one that's rarely ever talked about. I think you probably forgot it existed. The knockback says the Uber destroys all knockback. Or destroys all knockback, whatever. Or, slowdown effects. Slowdown effects, knockback, stun effects, whatever. Which is really useful. Really useful. You might be like, there's nothing that slows you down. The Natasha is just, if you're using the Natasha and you fight a quick fix medic while he's been Ubered, you're gonna lose because you're just doing less damage for no upside. And I guess the Sandman, but that doesn't do much. But the Natasha's the big one. And technically, Air Blast does like stun you a little bit or whatever. And that means that it gets denied by the Uberto charge. Which can... Actually, wait, no. I think there might be an exception to that. I don't know. But I think there might be an exception to that. No. There's not an exception to that. I just had to think for a second. Sorry. There's no exception to that. Which means you can get some accusations. Especially for Air Blast Happy Pirates. And soldiers and demos with their knockback. Because, unless they don't instantly kill you with their sticky trap or crit rocket. Because that they get a little like angy or I'm mad that damn medic he's cheating. So if you're on a server and you're using quick fix and someone's like he's hacking, he's not taking any knockback, just go no, shut up, it has a knockback reduction, and yeah, so send them a link to this video so I get more views. No, don't do that. But still, those are some things that you should just know. Those are just things that aren't talked about much with the quick fix. And yes, so we've talked about the Uber. We talked about the thing, downside, stats, all that stuff. You might be thinking, what's more there is to talk about? Well, we have what it's good against. Now we're moving on to its counters and what it counters, if that makes sense. Okay, so what it does is, with its knockback reduction, it can counter pyros really well, actually, because of how pyro works, really, and your increased healing rate. It can shut down pyro as well because they can't break you up with your Uber recipient with their air blast because no air blast. And they're like flames and afterburn really don't do anything because you heal so fast. Now if it's like a flog crits, then yes, that might be a problem. But that's really a problem to anything. That's one of its buffs. Another one of its strengths is like Demo Man, because their explosions have knockback, which can knock you back, obviously, and if you don't get knocked back, you can just kind of rush in there, which also makes it really good for, like, which makes it really good for, like, other things that knock you back. Just most knockback things it's really good against, and classes like Heavy and, Heavy, who don't have much, Heavy, who doesn't have much burst damage. He just basically relies on standing there. He gets kind of shut down because no high burst damage gets out healed. Same with the spies who don't use their knife. Like if a spy is like shooting at you, you'll just out heal him every time. Same with other medics, unless they get a crit on you. But other medics and engineers with no real burst damage, and you can shut down level 1 and level 2 sentries pretty well because no knockback, which makes it actually really good against sentries. But level 3 is where it starts to get tricky because it's just spewing out a ton of damage, so that makes it just harder. And yeah, which leads into the final big upside is Sentry Nest pushing with Homewrecker Pyros, because Homewrecker does like increased damage against buildings. So if you push in there with an Uber charge and you can tank all the damage and you can like one shot like all their buildings, that's good. It's really good for Sentry Nest busting, because most all the other ones get like destroyed by sentries because knock back and you get blown away. But, sometimes level 3s can be a problem because they do spew out a lot of damage. Now it's on to its weaknesses. We have burst damage classes. Now we have its weaknesses. Burst damage. Burst damage, whether it's insta-kills, headshots, anything. Any burst damage just shuts this weapon down. So, because, they can just bap, bap. Yeah, so, like, scouts can be a huge problem. Oh, God, demos can be a pretty big problem. And snipers can also be a pretty big problem just because of how they, work. And how they're prioritized burst damage and shooting down fast. Go fast, eat ass. And, just kind of destroying people quickly. That's kind of how they roll. But with, slower damage, with that, this doesn't work. This doesn't do good against burst damage. And, those are its main upsides and downsides. So, yeah, that's the video. I want to remind you to like the video and subscribe. I know I don't usually say that, but, we got 16 subscribers, and that's pretty good. So every video should be having 16 views, but I'm not, because my subscribers don't care about me, which is evil. But it's fine. Just like the video so I get more money, because I want money, because I like money. Bye.